Good morning. I am very pleased to introduce somebody that is like a dodo, but that never dies. On the contrary, he every time is doing better and doing greater things. And this is the case of John Hope Bryant. I was lucky to share with him a panel at the OECD Forum last year on banking. And I was so impressed that I said, look, you have to come to Madrid and talk to our alumni. And he has graciously come with his wife today to Madrid. What is unique about John? He's both a social entrepreneur and a businessman, founder and chairman and CEO of Operation Hope. He's a thought leader, best-selling author, public speaker and innovator in the United States. He has traveled worldwide promoting the following virtues: hope, self-esteem, dignity, empowerment, opportunity, and leadership. Operation Hope is the first non-profit social investment banking organization in the world, founded after Rodney King riots in 1992 in South Central in Los Angeles, where he is coming from. It operates in more than 270 US communities, as well as in South Africa. It has served more than 1.5 million individuals, has more than 18,000 Hope Corps volunteers, more than 5,000 partners from governments, communities, and the private sector. It has raised more than $600 million and helped to restructure another $450 million in subprime mortgages to empower the poor, for a total of close to $1 billion in economic activity for the underserved. He is a partner with former President Clinton and his foundation, teaching financial literacy and working closely with Hope Global Spokesman Ambassador Andy Young. So let's listen to him, and then you will see if my words are right or not. Please, John, come to speak to the floor.
How do you take a system that you think is against you and turn it on its head and make it for you? If all you see is a drug dealer, a rap star, or an athlete as the only symbols of prosperity, aspiration, and success, then guess what you want to be? There's a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind, a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never to be poor again. You cannot have 3.5 billion people who do not have as much wealth as 85 of the wealthiest people in the world. That's not sustainable. Freedom and liberty and justice and fair play is not a thing, it's a feeling. And today, freedom, the definition of freedom is self-determination. You cannot self-determine yourself in the modern world except through commerce and economics. Everything from the time you get up to the time you go to bed involves commerce and finance. But we don't understand either, most of us, which means that we are basically prisoners. Small business owners, entrepreneurs, and shoot-ups and startups generate all new job growth in America, the largest economy in the world. So you need this middle class dream and reality so that people can go up the ladder. It is a radical movement of common sense that says you have got to give people the memo, the language of money. Some people got the memo, and there are probably 5 billion people plus on this planet who never got the memo, don't even know it exists. Project 5117 of Operation Hope between now and 2020 will deliver the memo. We will create America's first national private banker for the poor, the working class, and the struggling middle class. Oh, people say I'm nuts, and that's a compliment, because they said that Steve Jobs was nuts. And they said that Ted Turner was nuts. And they said that Bill Gates was nuts. And they said that my hero, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was nuts. Let me tell you what, I'll take it. The book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, is not counterintuitive. It's history. It's not political in any way, shape, or form. It's not black and it's not white. It's not about rich and it's not about poor. It's not about west and it's not about east. It's about human nature. This is about a sustainable life, living a life you can actually be proud of. Hello. Good morning. I'm sorry, you see, we're getting off on the wrong foot already. You see, I come from the black church where we have a tradition of seek and respond. So I'll try this one more time. Good morning. Good morning. Very good. I want to acknowledge my wife, Professor Natasha Bryant, who is here somewhere, who traveled with me. The dean of your great school gave this wonderful opening remarks. I had a great conversation with him. Several of the leaders that I've met, most notably, I must say, some of the women leaders who have done extraordinary jobs behind the scenes in putting this conference together. And what I would call my brother from another mother, Guillermo. This is one cool man. It's very hard to call a central banker a cool man, but he's very cool. This to me is not a conference. It's not a forum. It's the framework for our new world. And you'll find that civil rights was really waged and won in the streets across the world. Gandhi in India, Michael Collins in Ireland, Nelson Mandela in South Africa, my friend Desmond Tutu, Dr. King, and my friend Andrew Young in the southern states, all around the world. But civil rights will be waged and won in the suites. It'll be a different agenda. So let me start with a phrase. I'm going to use 5 themes for my remarks. One is we need to have a new look. We need to reimagine how we see ourselves. I'm honored to be in a country that is not only a great culture and a great economy, but is so embedded in world history. And really, the 50 million people here have inspired, 45 million people in Spain, have inspired what is now 500 million Spanish speakers all around the world. And that's pretty incredible, just the cultural export of this language around the world. 500, almost half a billion people speaking Spanish around the world. And while this cultural significance is very important, we need a software upgrade on how we see ourselves. What do I mean? 99.9% of all DNA is precisely the same. But we obsess about 1/4 of 1%. Society obsesses about hair, eye, skin, color. 1/4 of 1% is what this includes, but 99.9% are completely the same. Or as Bill Clinton would say, we obsess on our rather uninteresting differences than our amazing similarities. And so we need to reimagine culture and economy and growth. I find it interesting that the largest economy in the world, and I want to commend you in being one of the 20 largest economies in the world here, but the largest economy in the world, the United States, is also the only nation in the world with every race of people within her borders. I don't think this is an accident. And saluting really your diversity here in Spain also. In America, for those who think this is a coincidence, the 2 largest economies in the U.S. are California and New York. The 2 most diverse places in the United States are California and New York. And the 12th largest economy in the entire world, if it was a country, is Los Angeles. And Los Angeles also is home to more than 170 different cultures. And some of my friends have said rather ignorantly to me at times, well, you know, Los Angeles, why are all these Mexicans in Los Angeles? I said, well, you do know what Los Angeles means. Some of you got it, some of you didn't. They're just coming to get their stuff. California was once Mexico. We're all in this thing together. My friends were doing work in Puerto Rico, and I will often say the Puerto Ricans are too black to be Spanish and too Spanish to be black. We're all in this thing together. I took my own DNA test recently, Guillermo, and found that I'm 71% Cameroon from Africa, 26% European, the rest is Asian, Indian, and other. What does that mean? If I hate white people, I hate myself. If I hate Spanish, I hate myself. If I hate Asians, Indians, and others, I hate myself. And here's a real shocker. You're all basically made up the same way. Maybe different ratios, but take a DNA test and you'll be shocked to see how much we actually have in common. Very few people in this world are pure anything. We're all made up of what my friend Quincy Jones would call global gumbo. So we need to reimagine ourselves. We also need to reimagine wealth and poverty. I love your founder's remarks, and I also enjoy the remarks around innovation. I'm going to bring those 2 things together. The founder of this business school really, and I'm going to put this in my own words, he said that basically an entrepreneur works 18 hours a day to keep from getting a job. Now, I'm giving you guys some good stuff. It's going right over your head. It's okay. You'll laugh later. That success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And that rainbows only follow storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. Nothing is easy. Anything that's worth anything takes work, and work is love. Love is work. There is no substitute. If you love your husband or your wife, you want to divorce once a month. You love your children, you want to strangle them once a week, every Tuesday. You love your job, but you want to quit, but you can't because you're the founder. Am I ringing a bell here yet? Love is work. Non-love is laziness. Anti-love is evil. Evil exists, but it's very rare. Most people, Guillermo, are just lazy. Intellectually lazy, spiritually lazy, emotionally lazy, psychologically lazy, physically lazy, financially lazy. They just don't want to the work. If you're looking at wondering what I'm doing here, I normally don't use notes when I speak, but when you have limited times, I just want to make sure I nail this. We have times for Q&A, so I'm doing what I never do, which is to script myself. We need to reimagine what we think about wealth and poverty. And I'm going to bring this now home to Spain, because I think we've got some very bad misconceptions. First of all, most wealth comes from poverty. And I know you find that hard to believe. But most wealth comes from poverty. Most wealth comes from entrepreneurs, and most entrepreneurs started with absolutely nothing. Walmart, the largest retailer in the world. It was a guy named Sam Walton with a pickup truck and a storefront that grew it to the largest retailer in the world. UPS, United Parcel Service, started by a guy named Jim Casey with $100 and a bicycle. Literally true. And the word innovation is appropriate because the innovation came into his business, Jim Casey at UPS, when he, after 10 years into the business, he found the Model T, the Ford, the automobile, which then allowed him to move from a bicycle to automotive transportation, and businesses sailed. What am I saying? Innovation is important, but to quote Jim Clifton, CEO of Gallup, an innovation without a customer standing next to it is not a business. An innovation without a customer standing next to it is interesting, but it's not a business. Or let me put it another way for your business school, one of the largest, best business schools in the world, I understand. PhDs are good, but PhDs are better. Now, you guys better start laughing really soon. I'm going to start taking this personal. I know it's some funny stuff. And you can go on and on with these stories of, 40% of all Fortune 500 companies in the U.S. were founded by immigrants. And Coca-Cola, one of the biggest brands in the world, came from a little pharmacist who sold the pharmacy, sold the whole company for $550 in the early 1900s. $550, and talk about financial literacy. When he sold it to the banker offered him some stock. He said, and he has his son, and I'm thinking about how wise our conversation was last night and how you're taking on your dad's legacy in a unique way, but also carving your own and working hard. But this son, not like you, the founder said, do you want some stock in the new company or do you want cash? The son said, I just want cash. So they got $550, and within 7 years, the son and the father had both passed. And the new company, within 10 years, took off and became a multi-million-dollar enterprise. And we now know it's one of the best brands in the world. And so we can go on and on with this story, but every big business was basically a small one. Guillermo's on the board of Goldman Sachs, but that was by two guys, Goldman and Sachs, who had a little merchant house and were really trading commercial papers because they were told you couldn't be bankers. Bank of America started with this young Italian from Italy who went to San Francisco after the fires and the riots there and gave small $300 loans to merchants and was told that he was crazy. Well, that little business literally started on, they call it banquettes, on the tops of the bars where he would bank and do these transactions. The dignified people said, this guy is crazy, he has no couth. But this uncouth guy was brilliant and reimagined something we now call Bank of America. So this risk taker now has innovated a bank that is one of the most conservative in the world. That's another conversation. But every big business started with a small one. Now let me say one other thing that's controversial. Whatever you've been told about poverty is wrong. Completely wrong. It has nothing to do with money. Please put the graph up. You've been told that poverty is financial. It is not. The graph will be up in a moment. I see it here. Let me just walk you through it. Half of all poverty is low self-esteem and lack of confidence in yourself. I'll repeat. Half of all poverty is low self-esteem and lack of confidence in yourself. Imagine the founder of this university lacking self-esteem. I want to start a university to help people, help them. That wouldn't work very well. One thing you know about him is his sense of vision, his sense of passion, his sense of belief. Half of all poverty is low self-esteem and lack of confidence in yourself. This then connects to role models. The 25% of all poverty is role models and environment. Why am I a businessman? My father was. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not brilliant. I'm role modeling. Why does a kid in an inner city neighborhood want to be a rap star, an athlete, or a drug dealer? The kids aren't dumb and they aren't stupid. They're actually brilliant. They're modeling what they see. Everybody's aspirational. Got to be ready. Everybody, I want to give them a good picture. Everybody is aspirational, everybody. But if all you see in your neighborhoods as symbols of success are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers, why is anybody surprised that's who you grow up wanting to be? And what is a drug dealer, by the way, if not an illegal entrepreneur? It's immoral, it's disgusting, there's a special place in hell reserved for people who sell death to their own community. But what a drug dealer is not is dumb. They understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, logistics. What is a gang organizer if not a frustrated union organizer? The guys running from the police could be Mario Andretti. The same skill set, but no role models or horrible role models. Why am I a businessman? My father was. Why are you a businessman? Your father was. Why do you wear a suit? You saw your father wear a suit. Why does a woman here dare to say, I'm an executive? You saw a woman that said, I can do that. My father was a role model and was a businessman, and my wife's research helped me understand that my grandfather in the days of slavery was also a businessman. I am just following, as the founder said in his remarks, my DNA from a cultural perspective. Environment. What do I mean by environment? Basically what I'm saying is if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. You guys are a tough audience. I mean, this is funny. This is really, you may not laugh. I'm going to laugh at my own jokes. Aspiration. Aspiration is a code word for hope. The most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope. What's the problem in the world right now? Globally, young people. I know you have an unemployment rate here that is double digits for young people. It's not just your problem. It's a European problem. It's a Middle East problem. It's an American problem. It's a global problem. And these are young people who are frustrated, internet connected, and have lost hope. And the most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope. The Middle East needs 100 million jobs by 2020. I have no idea. They have no idea where they're going to come from. But I guarantee you the course that they're on right now is the wrong course. I'm not just saying this to you. I'm saying this when I go there. I have an office in Saudi Arabia and Morocco and UAE, and I say the same thing to them when I go there. They're on the wrong path, but the opportunity is right, actually, in front of them, which then leads to opportunity. So if you have low self-esteem and low levels of confidence, crappy role models in a crappy environment, you have low levels of aspiration, code word for hope, you don't see opportunity in your life. You see the glasses half empty, not half full. You're actually not skeptical, you're cynical, you just don't believe. And then you drop out. You drop out of life, you drop out of high school. But people who drop out of high school drop out mentally in high school, but mentally in middle school and physically in high school. What did Deepak Chopra say? We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Life's about energy. So these young people say, what's the point? I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to prosper. So about right now, you should be questioning whether this guy knows what he's talking about. I love those kind of questions. Let's now go to some very, very, very verifiable data. So let's now tie this horrible tragedy that happened in France. It was horrible 3 weeks ago. Let's tie that to what's going on with ISIS in the Middle East. Let's tie that now to the Arab Spring. Let's tie that now to Ferguson, Missouri. I'm sure you've heard about that horrible story. Let's tie that to Eric Garner in New York. It's all connected, and it's all economic. It's all connected, and it's all economic. You say, well, John, the Arab Spring, that was about Islamic extremism. No, it was not. That's what you've been told. It is wrong. Here's what really happened. A guy named Muhammad had a little cart business. He was trying to take care of his family, put a roof over their head, send his kids to school, put food on the table. The authorities, I'm not going to call them law enforcement, the authorities stopped him and said, you don't have a permit, sir. Please come with me. He said, sure. How do I get a permit? He said, there is no permit. Translation, I'm in charge of your life. He lost hope, threw his hands up. But right before he set himself on fire, he didn't say death to America. He didn't say I hate the West. He didn't say I don't want democracy. He didn't say, he didn't call for Allah, with all due respect. He didn't call for a jihad. He said, I just want to work. The last things out of his mouth before he set himself on fire was, I just want to work. So says Gallup, the number one thing that people want in the world today is a job. Eric Garner in New York was selling single cigarettes, trying to take care of his family. If he had a storefront with a proper business environment and not been selling on the street, he'd probably be alive today. It was an economic situation that put him in an environment where he's now, unfortunately, passed. Michael Brown in Ferguson, if he was employed, he'd probably be alive today. He's a young man with potential on the wrong side of the law, stole cigars from a liquor store. If he had a job, he could have purchased them. One thing led to another. He finds himself in an unfortunate situation. He's now dead. It was economic before it was anything else. And unfortunately, you look in France and you look underneath the people who did this horrible thing. One of them was unemployed. Both of them were from the suburbs. I said 20 years ago that France was going to have riots if they didn't change the way they dealt with their immigrant population. One thing that Europe has gotten, unfortunately, wrong, is understanding your inner cities is valuable. America is crazy. The only place in the world that takes poor people and put them in centrally located real estate. It's amazing. It's just crazy to me. And the one thing you've gotten right is you understand that an inner city in France is called Paris. It's centrally located real estate. An inner city in Spain is called Madrid. But what we did in America is put these poor people in these inner cities, and by the way, that's going to all change. Detroit's coming back, but you'll find that it was going to grow from an urban core. All these center cities are going to be completely revitalized. You heard it from me here. But in France, you have these suburbs where people only feel French when they pay their taxes. Did you get that? They feel disconnected from opportunity. What am I saying? The new color is not black, white, red, brown, or yellow. It's green, as in the color of U.S. currency. Oh, you like that one. Let me now talk about rainbows after storms and a new way to see your so-called problems. I hear that youth is a problem here and around the world. That is untrue. It is your untapped opportunity. You cannot have a movement anywhere in the world without young people. And you must begin to understand that rainbows only follow storms. You literally cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It's a scientific fact. And that loss creates leaders. That nobody woke up in the morning and said, I want to start a cancer foundation. Who starts cancer foundations? People who had cancer, people who knew somebody who had cancer, loved somebody who had cancer, admired somebody who had cancer. They had cancer. And as a result of that, they now care about the issue. And now Michael Milken, by the way, who would care less about prostate cancer research, well, prostate cancer, now is one of the largest funders of prostate cancer research in the world because he got prostate cancer. Rainbows after storms. What's my point? Between 1845 and 1930, 5 million Spaniards went from Spain to what we now call Latin America. And it's produced these 500 million people that I referenced earlier that are now Spanish speakers all around the world. Did you get that? 5 million people went from Spain from 1845 to 1930, created what we now call Latin America, and has now inspired almost a half a billion people, more than a half a billion people in the world, to speak your language and export your culture around the world. It is a strength. What happened during the same time? 1865, March 3rd, President Abraham Lincoln, arguably the best president America has ever had, after the Emancipation Proclamation, after the Civil War, during a very tough time in America, created something called the Freedmen's Bank. The Freedmen's Bank's mission, and this is why I love the partnership you now have with the Financial Times. The Freedmen's Bank's mission was to teach freed slaves about money. This is revolutionary. By the way, that couldn't happen today. This was 1865, after the Civil War. Wait a minute, the president thought the most important thing he could do, think about now the founding of this university, this business school, he thought the most important thing he could do after physical freedom was to teach freed slaves about the language of money and introduce them to the free enterprise system. Something else happened prior to that. January 16, 1865, the Secretary of State got together with former slaves, 20 ministers, and said, what do you want? They didn't say, I want a handout. They didn't say, I want a social program. They didn't even say, I want an apology. They said, I want land. I want to work. That's where you might have heard of 40 acres and a mule. Some of you may have heard the story. But it was called, in legislative terms, Field Action 15. And Field Action 15 called for 400,000 acres. Watch this now. From North Carolina, anybody knows America, North Carolina, all the way down the coast to the tip of Florida, which is the new home, the modern headquarters for Latin America, Miami. You guys are tough. From North Carolina all the way down to the tip of Florida, 400,000 acres, 30 miles in, all the way down. That was all put aside for former slaves. Now, that's great land today, but back then it was horrible land. Why? Because that was an agrarian age. So basically, you're going to the beach to farm. So you go to, you plant some seeds at night, you wake up in the morning, and your crop is now in the Bahamas. But they took this land. They didn't complain. They took nothing and made something out of it. They didn't complain. And within a month's time, they were so industrious on this land, the general in charge said, give them a mule. What does that mean? A mule in 1845 was like a tractor today. It was not a handout, it was an investment. He said, my God, look at how industrious they are. Give them some additional help to help them themselves. Teach them how to fish. Unfortunately, Abraham Lincoln was killed April 1865, 5 weeks after the creation of the Freedmen's Bank. A guy named Frederick Douglass tried to run the bank after the president was killed and put $10,000 of his own money in. It reminds me of the $3 million that the founder of this business school put in. And he put $10,000 in, and when it failed, he said the failure of this bank did more to set freed slaves back in America than 10 more years of slavery. Now, $10,000 in 1865 is $1 million today. And what happened? You pop your fingers and 100 years passes, and now you have Dr. King and my hero Andrew Young creating the Poor People's Campaign, and Dr. King gets killed April 4th, 1968, 2 weeks before the first march of the Poor People's Campaign in the United States. And then you have to pop your fingers again, go 50 more years, and now you have the publishing of my book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, which is basically delivering the memo. What do I mean by that? It's not like poor people and struggling families, 5 billion of the 7 billion people in the world, got the memo on free enterprise and capitalism and screwed it up. They never got the memo. Did you get that? They're not dumb, they're not stupid. It's what you don't know that you don't know that's killing you. They never got the memo. No one ever taught them the language of money. And to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the definition of slavery. What's my mission? To deliver the memo in my lifetime to 5 billion people on the planet, to give young people hope, to help them help themselves, to teach people how to fish, and to finish what Abraham Lincoln started. I'm going to get to that when I end, but I am starting my own version of the Freedmen's Bank. It's called Hope Inside. And for those who say I'm a dreamer, you're right, I am a dreamer, but I'm a dreamer with a shovel in my hand. And we have opened last year alone 100 Hope Inside locations inside of the 15 largest banks in America, not from a handout perspective, but from a hand-up perspective, moving credit scores in America 120 points in 24 months. Nothing changes your life more than God or love in the U.S. than moving your credit score 120 points. Here's what we found out. Predatory financial lenders, and it's a $500 billion industry in America. $500 billion, more than 500 billion U.S. Check cashers, payday loan lenders, rent-to-own stores, title lenders, liquor stores. There are more check cashers in America than Starbucks. They are preying on using what's called negative behavioral economics. It's not discrimination. It's not based on race. They're literally targeting a 500 credit score customer. Did you get that? So whether it's an urban black and brown neighborhood, a rural white neighborhood, or the suburbs in some of the places in Europe, or whether we're talking about outside of military bases where you have a population at risk who don't understand the language of money, these capitalists, so-called, are preying on a 500 credit score customer. My mission is to rob them of their customer. We've opened 100 locations just last year. We're opening 1,000 locations by 2020. We're going to move credit scores 120 points in a 4 square block area, community by community. And when you do that, you pop GDP. You solve the jobs problem. You give people a sense of their own aspirations, their own opportunity. You help people help themselves. Now I'm going to bring this home and suggest two closing thoughts. One, you need to reimagine the trend lines that you use in this country to move the country forward. Here's some innovative, crazy trend lines. Everybody needs to accept credit cards in this country. You have robbed me of all my cash in 2 days. I went to Toledo. I couldn't buy anything. I couldn't take care of my wife. Everybody wants cash. Everybody wants a euro. Nobody takes a credit card. Everybody here, every merchant needs to take a credit card. I'm serious. Number two, you need to have universal internet. If 3G cuts me off one more time, you cannot have modern commerce without having internet everywhere. And I was in this little merchant shop in Toledo, and I walked in, I was so proud. I said, okay, do you take credit cards? Yes. Oh, great, fantastic. Can I buy something? Yes. Can I ship it? Yes, we ship worldwide. Amazing. And I said, well, I have to leave right now. He said, no problem. I have a website. You have a website. He said, all my inventory is on the website. When you get back home, I'll make it convenient for you to buy this. We'll ship it. And by the way, that little simple analogy, it will change your whole country. And by the way, the final thing is, you really need to make sure that English is your second language. I am tired of getting into taxis and they don't know what I'm saying. In closing, here's my message to you. Small business will save your country. Entrepreneurs are going to save your country. And you have a chance to save Europe and inspire the rest of the world. Here's an interesting, I don't have time, I've run out of time to give you statistics, but it's in my book. But 70%, so America is the largest economy in the world. 70% of the U.S. economy is consumer-driven. Get that? 70%. Buying coffee, paying car notes, small things, 70%. And half of all jobs in America are 100 employees or less. 70% of all jobs in America are 500 employee or less businesses. And 97% of all employment in Los Angeles are 100 employees or less. So we're looking for love in all the wrong places. So here's what we tell our kids in the U.S. 350 million people, Guillermo, here's what we tell them. We say, go to school K through 12, yes, great. Graduate, great. go work for a big company or government, neither of which are hiring. So you have 26 million companies in the US, 6 million that employ one person or more, 6 million. Out of the 6 million that employ one person or more, 974 employ 10,000 people or more. Did you get that? 970, you can name them. GE, Wells Fargo, it's a problem that you can name them. And none of them are hiring. So where does job growth come from? Entrepreneurs, startups, shoot-ups, small businesses years 3 through year 7 is where all job growth comes from. Look at your week. Where do you go in a typical week? You go to a nail salon. How many people working in a nail salon? 4 people. You go to get a haircut. Those of us who have hair. Mine's leaving me. How many people working in the barbershop? 4 or 5 people. You go to a restaurant. How many people are there? 10 people, 20. You think about your week. It's all small business. We're looking for love in all the wrong places. Your untapped opportunity are young people and entrepreneurship, because every big business was once a small. Oh, you're finally catching on? Look, I have to stop because I'm out of time, but I wanted to come to you and suggest through what I call a treetop speech, giving you enough content to give you a bit of a new vision for how to move your country forward in the 21st century and reimagine prosperity, make people too busy to hate. Atlanta is the only international city in the southern states in America. And we did it because we made it more important to make money together than to hate or get distracted over race and silly things like culture. People just said, I'd rather make money than argue with you about things that are not important, because we got more in common than we do that separate us. Reimagine your future. Commit to young people. What we're doing is going into schools and teaching entrepreneurship, and we're giving kids a course in financial literacy, a course in entrepreneurship, 25 businesses the kids can start for $500 or less. We do a pitch event in the kids' auditorium. Think Shark Tank for kids. Kids has 2 minutes, a little timer, which I ignored when I'm up here. A little timer, 2 minutes, and you get the pitch. Go. You pitch your idea for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, there's a panel of judges, no celebrities, relatable role models. When the kid wins the pitch, we fund the business up to $500. We give them a bank account, we give them a business role model, and we believe that the million startups that America needs to revitalize our economy are going to come from those young people. Remember, Facebook and all the stuff came from young people in school who reimagined what they wanted to do and are literally helping to transform the world today. I love you. Thank you.
Great. Do we have a few minutes for questions? So we take questions from the floor. Well,
there's one way in the back. But Guillermo, you can say you can say
no,
whatever you want. You're a living legend.
No, just to get the microphone for the person that wants to ask. By the way, in the meantime, I read, you didn't tell me, that you were homeless for a while. Homeless.
Yeah, I was homeless for 6 months of my life when I was 18 and a half.
And
I was homeless. So one of the reasons I don't like arrogance is Ambassador Andrew Young says that men fail for 3 reasons: arrogance, pride, and greed. And there's a joke in America. The first generation of entrepreneurs make the money. The second generation spends the money. The third generation loses the money because there's an arrogance of entitlement.
Yes.
And I had believed too much of my own press. I believed I was better than other people. I stopped focusing on business and became focused on busyness. And whatever goes around comes around. At 18 years of age, I started my first business when I was 10. But by 18, I was impressed with myself. And I went from living in a beach house in Malibu, California, to living in my Jeep. But America's a great country because probably only in America could I go from that to being on the stage in Spain and advising 3 U.S. presidents and running a global enterprise today and having a chance to really reset myself.
Great. So?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I absolutely agree. There's a very low level of English here in Spain. So how do you think we should use education to improve this level? Because there are lots of schools who are supposed to be like to teach 2 languages, and we don't at all.
Yeah, great question. First of all, let me say that I'm not criticizing what you have made a word inspiration, which is your language. I actually, you heard me commend you for that. But the LinkedIn founder once said, if you're not slightly embarrassed by your 1.0 software release, you release too late. So you should never let the best be the death of the good. Always try to reimagine and upgrade what you're doing. My point here is that you have, yes, this great tradition of Spanish-speaking people around the world, but you're missing out on people who could be buying your products who don't speak Spanish. And English is a gateway language still in the world today. And I think that we're teaching our kids the wrong way. We've basically disconnected education from aspiration. Let's take what I teach, financial literacy. You want to put a kid to sleep? Give him a financial literacy course. It's completely boring. But if you say to a kid, let me show you how education will get you a job. Let me show you how education will help you start a business. Now all of a sudden the kid is interested in education again. So I think that we've got to connect the language issue with the prosperity issue. And I think that your educational system here in this country, basically what you're doing in the business school, you need to reverse design in your elementary and your middle schools. You need to really, do you know that we have a system for left brain analytical talent? It's called grades. We have a system to identify professional footballers, soccer players, in elementary school. They'll tell you in Canada, in elementary school, who your National Hockey League pros will be 20 years later. They farm club them all the way through. We tell you who is a great artist, a great musician in elementary and middle school. But if you try to tap and identify entrepreneurial talent, it does not exist. The system does not exist. And what I'm suggesting is that the software upgrade that the world needs is to connect education with aspiration. When you do that, people will then say, well, there are 7 billion people on the planet. How many of those speak English? It makes sense if I want to grow my business that I need to speak English so that I don't frustrate John Bryant in my taxi or in my shop. Here.
One more question, yes. Please, there, over there.
And if there are too many questions for time, I'll sign some books later today and be glad to chat.
Yeah, hello. Your example of Bank of America really resonated with me because I also work in a large corporation, which was initially very innovative, and I felt we've gone through the same problem. That we started as an innovative company and slowly became lazy, comfortable. So what do you think creates this, and what can we do to revert that process?
Wake up hungry every day. I remember being homeless, Guillermo. I remember it. And Natasha will tell you, I'm paranoid about being, and this doesn't make any sense now, but fear is not rational. Insecurities are not rational. I wake up every day thinking I'm going to be homeless again. I mean, it does not make any sense at all. But it drives me to get up early, stay late, so I didn't, they say that the way you make money is the magic of compounded interest. No, that's the way that rich people make money. I didn't have any money, so I had to have the magic of compounded hustle. Hustle on top of hustle created more hustle. And I literally just outran failure. I think that we need to, every day you need to take, you almost need to become immune to fear. I take fear for vitamins. I mean, I'm not scared of anything anymore, but that's because I went through so much pain and so many challenges. So don't be afraid of your challenges. And I will say, when you're going to be very successful, do not make the mistake of spoiling your children. You hear me? Do not make the mistake. Your children need the same values that you had. Work hard, be industrious, get up early, stay late, be courteous, be gracious, be kind, be giving, be philanthropic. You want your children to model what you're doing, and I didn't have the role model of a successful entrepreneur. We don't have time to go into this, but my dad actually was financially illiterate. That's another part of the story. I ended up taking care of my father because he was broke when he retired from business. So I think you've got to find a way to wake up with this edge, this hustle that will keep you focused on. Every good marriage is made of constructive friction. You got to just have a marriage with yourself about wanting to be constantly learning, as they say in Japan, kaizen, constantly improving.
Here.
We have a question near the front row.
Hello, John. I really enjoyed the speech, and I have a question regarding your perspective on the Middle East. You made a comment that the Middle East will require 100 million more jobs by 2020. So could you give me what's your vision, which you said that the Middle East is doing wrong in the sense of getting these 100 million jobs? Are you referring to the Expo 2020, or are you referring to something they're doing? And what's your path you would suggest?
Yeah. So great question. I'm gonna give you do this in cliff notes very quickly for time. There are three things they're basically doing wrong. And by the way, the same thing I'm telling you, I tell them directly. So I'm not talking out of school. And these are my prayer beads, my gift from Saudi Arabia that I wear every day. Number one, they have no vision. What I mean by that is 55 years ago, the wealthiest city in the world was Detroit.
Yeah.
I'll repeat. 55 years ago, don't trust me, go do your own research. The wealthiest city in the world, wealthier than Paris, wealthier than Madrid, wealthier than London, was Detroit. Of course, it's the largest bankruptcy in the world there because they become arrogant. They lost their storyline. And they think in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East, that a hole in the ground with oil in it is an economy. That's not, that's luck. And so what they should have done 30 years ago is take that profitability, that luck, that grace, and invest in alternative energy and become the leading alternative energy platform in the world, but they didn't want to compete with themselves. They didn't want, they were afraid that they was going to compete with petroleum. It's just ridiculous. Well, today, there's a report from Citigroup that shows that Saudi Arabia will be a net oil importer within the next 30 years. Saudi Arabia. So number one, it was a lack of vision and looking forward and challenging yourself. Number two, we have half the people on the playing field in Saudi Arabia off the playing field. Now, I don't go and talk about women from a moral perspective or a religious perspective. Here's what I say. If I have a football team, and I've got 100 players, I'm the U.S., you've got a football team, you've got 50 players, which is some country in the Middle East where you don't allow women to participate. I'm going to win every time. It's simple math. I'm going to clock you every time because 50 cannot compete with 100, and you got all this talent on the sidelines that's not contributing, and you cannot be a leading country in the world, which they want to be throughout the Middle East. You cannot be a leading country in the world without empowering women. It is impossible. So let me tell you, coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. So here's what's happening in Saudi Arabia and in other parts of the Middle East. Women who are not allowed to play roles in formal society with the elite are finding other ways to express themselves, and guess what the largest group of small business and entrepreneurship owners are in Saudi Arabia? It's women. Women are starting businesses at a larger clip than any other group in Saudi Arabia and other parts because they can't fit in traditionally, so they're going non-traditionally. And by the way, what's going to save the region? It's entrepreneurship. So you may end up having the whole region that does not treat women all that well being led by women in many ways in 20 or 30 years, which would not be such a bad thing. And the last thing is that 92% of all jobs in America are free enterprise jobs. 8% are government. In many countries in the Middle East, it's flipped. 92% of those jobs are government. And there's very small entrepreneurship or small business. So they really need to reimagine. They have done things, I understand it. For state security, they put people to sleep, giving them welfare. Give them a check so they don't have to work. They don't create any problems. The problem is you put my aspirations to sleep. So now people don't know how to work. There's no culture of entrepreneurship and small business. It's only a culture of privilege. Now they have an enormous opportunity there to create $1 trillion GDP economies, and I think that they're going to do it. But they've got to get out of their own way and reimagine their future. And I just hopefully gave you 2 or 3 good examples of how I think that can be done.
We take a last question from the
Hi, my question was about women, your perspective on women, because it seems to me that they even have less role models and the possibility of having even lower self-confidence than men. So globally, can you give us your ideas on...
So I have a couple things to say about women and here my premonition for the world, and I'm going to leave because my mother always told me, you never want to be the old guy in the club. Yes. So before you guys leave, kick me out, I'm going to leave. But with regard to women, a couple of things. First of all, without women, there'd be much fewer men in the world. You'll get that later. Number two, I was talking to this gentleman. Women are very wise. They have skills, soft skills that they use. They don't get a lot of credit. I was talking to a guy in New York who'd been married for 45 years. And I asked his wife, how'd you do this? Married for 45 years is amazing. She said, it's very easy. We're both in love with the same man. You guys are tough. This is really funny stuff. But the real answer is that nobody can repress human potential. It's just impossible. And women have this untapped human potential. I believe, this is my prediction, you're going to see the decade of the woman in our lifetime. And it's already started. What's the IMF chief? A woman. Who's the Federal Reserve chief? A woman. Think about this. Who's the Chancellor for Germany? A woman who is now trying to bring the Ukraine and Russia back together. Who may be the next president of the United States of America? A woman. Very cool one, by the way. You look at the indexes of who's starting most small business and entrepreneurs, and in many repressed places, it is women who are popping those numbers. I really think that this will be the decade of the woman. Don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.